it when TBI comes to talk to our judges, and you all may have had them come to talk with one of your meetings of conferences as well, where they hold up a little packet of sugar, put a few grains of sugar out in their hand and say, this is how much it takes to kill someone with fentanyl. And now it's not just fentanyl in a pure form, but it's all kinds of carfentanil and newly created types of fentanyl. Fentanyl was actually used to put elephants down. So if you can imagine finding that ground up in a pill that you bought on the street, or now, and what is really sad to me, is inside marijuana cigarettes. So again, we have had the most overdose deaths ever recorded. Next slide. I sent a group of judges to Ohio, and the weekend that they were there, they turned on the news. They were going to set up a regional opioid task force. The weekend that they were there, this occurred. Two grandparents. The child had already been removed from his own parents because of the opioid epidemic. He was placed with his grandparents, and they also overdosed in front of his eyes. So it is just so devastating. And I know you all deal with ACEs and trauma-informed treatment and decision-making every single day. But just to see this kind of trauma is just incredible to me. Next slide. So, of course, here is how much COVID has impacted the opioid crisis here in Tennessee. And I'll just say the very first fact to me just says it all, that we had more drug overdose deaths from January to September than we had in the entire previous year. So we know it is having an impact. Next slide. Once again, the impact of the whole opioid crisis on babies and infants. You all have heard Judge Sloan talk many times about adopting his children. And what we still don't really know is what both short-term and long-term impacts may be. Next slide. And of course, you all heard Commissioner Williams talking about having more funding for new residential centers. It was one of Ellen Abbott's and all of our biggest dreams, that sadly, when women are placed in jail, they often have longer jail stays because there's no place for them to go. Next slide. So, one of the things that we try to talk about is this wasn't just in the criminal justice system, but that every single system, civil courts, our chancellors who see more conservatorships and guardianships being created, bankruptcy, financial issues, again, in civil courts. I had so many of our judges calling me saying, Debbie, we just don't know what to do when we see these people. And so that's one of the things that the AOC committed to, was training every single judge at every single level of jurisdiction. Next slide. So the National Judicial Opioid Task Force was formed, as I said, to provide services and resources for our own judges. Next slide. But what we found out was that it wasn't just our judges that needed these resources. It was anyone who came anywhere, in contact with law enforcement, with the broader court system, with needing civil justice help, with which Anne Louise will talk about later. Next slide. So I wanted to highlight where you can go to get all of these free resources. And again, while we started out with the concept of training and providing resources for judges, what we found was that they are so helpful for anyone who is facing families who are in crisis. Next slide. So I've tried to really highlight the ones that you all may find most informative, that you all can print off for free, that you can hand out to families, that you can have sitting at your nonprofit, that you can read yourself, just in terms of how you talk about these issues. We actually have a dictionary that has all kinds of addiction and SUD type terminology. Next slide. So whether, again, you're in civil or criminal justice, many of these can help you all. We talk about naloxone in the courthouse, but of course, you all need to know about this for your own services, your own facilities as well. Also, many of these show promising strategies. So I hope that you all may find something in another state. There are contacts in there. There are ways to reach out to the AOC or to actually any of these pilots that are going on around the nation. Next slide. Again, to show that how much more we need to have collaboration and education. So we talk a lot to the judges. There is the SUD dictionary, actually. There are also words really do matter. So it really does matter how we all talk to people who are facing these crises and various addictions, not just the opioid addiction, but any addiction in their lives. Next slide. Again, prenatal substance abuse and information on what's going on across the country. Next slide. This is something that many of you all are already doing where you have peer-to-peer support groups. So this was, again, trying to take families who have been through the system and connect them with families who are coming into the system. Next slide. So Stephanie will talk a little bit more about children and youth who are involved in the system. But again, just another sheet for you all to use about trauma and how to utilize strategies that both incorporate trauma-informed decision-making and resources. Next slide. Again, more about the welfare system in order to focus on prevention. So that's something else that we are trying to focus on at the AOC. So whether it is in the evictions arena or it's in juvenile court or it's even in child welfare, which is something that both Anne Louise and Stephanie will talk about in Tennessee. Next slide. Next slide. So again, we have been trying to talk to our judges about the power of their being able to convene a community. You all hear about Judge Sloan, and I know that you all have heard him over the past few days, but just a remarkable leader. This shows a picture of him with Chief Justice John Roberts. Judge Sloan received the William Rehnquist Award. So out of over 100,000 trial judges in the whole nation, he won the top award that the Chief Justice gives out just one time a year to one judge. Next slide. Also, different types of specialty courts. The judge on the right is from Buffalo, New York. And if you look down in there, he actually was seeing people who were coming to his recovery court every single day for the first 30 days. So he, like Judge Sloan, has had such an impact on specialty courts all across the nation and on helping people be successful. Next slide. Again, just a few more of the programs to respond to children. Next slide. And Judge Sloan now has been instrumental in starting something that is called SMART. I'm not sure if Stephanie is going to talk about it or not, but again, if you all would like to get involved in this, we would welcome you and love to have you. UT and ETSU, for maybe one of the first times I can remember, were able to get a very large federal grant. And so they are working hard with all kinds of nonprofits, mostly in East Tennessee. So if any of you all are there, please let us know if you'd like to get involved. Next slide. Safe Baby Court, Stephanie is going to talk about. I'm so excited. We are up to 12, and Senator Farrell Hale, whom some of you all may know, is basically the father of our Safe Baby Courts. He and I were able to go to a conference in Florida, and literally within 1 year, he helped to make the funding and the statutory underpinning possible to begin with 3 trial Safe Baby Courts. And now, as you can see, they're scattered across the state. Next slide. Again, the highest risk of overdose is often as people are exiting jail and beginning their reentry process. So just 2 more really fantastic programs. Next slide. Again, how important the collection of data is. I know many of you all are involved in data collection. Some of you all maybe have heard about New Mexico's Project Echo. It's something that I would really, really encourage you all to consider. It's also using the intercept model to see where each of us can inject ourselves along the journey of someone who has come to the attention either of you all who are practicing or of law enforcement and the court system. Next slide. I won't talk about this because I know that Stephanie will, but we just wanted you all to know how many programs there are. I'm very excited to be part of a program called Firefly that a young neonatologist received a big federal grant for. And again, he is having incredible results with pregnant moms who have an addiction and helping to ensure that babies are born healthy. And actually, in many, many cases, without any of the neonatal abstinence syndrome, without any NAS. So we're very excited about his research and we'll be sharing that with you all. Next slide. Again, Judge Sloan, as you can see, we are huge fans, and he helped to create something called 10 Rocks, which has now been taken national. We have trained judges from all over the entire nation, and just really proud of the fact that it has Tennessee in the name. And so everybody who adopts the 10 Rock strategy knows that it's from Tennessee. So very proud of that. Wanted to share that as well. Next slide. Next slide. Again, one of the things that we have been talking about both nationally and here in Tennessee is trying to add to one of the powerful new innovative tools, medical legal partnerships that legal aid both nationally and Tennessee has adopted. This is where we not only have a doctor or a nurse and a lawyer together. In many cases, for instance, inside Erlanger in Chattanooga and inside Le Bonheur in Memphis, they're already an office with these people who are trying to help families while they are still in the hospital to deal with all of their civil legal issues. So this would be even enhancing the team to add, for instance, an addiction specialist or a psych nurse to those teams. So very, very excited about this. Next slide. And very glad to tell you that our opioid task force has now evolved into really a behavioral health resource hub. Again, all of these materials are free. They are all available for you all to use. Here was just an example of the intercept model that I know many of you all have already used, but we would be happy to try to provide more resources for you in order to do this in your community or maybe just within your nonprofit. Next slide. Here is where you can go so that you can get to all of these services and resources, all free, all available online. Next slide. Again, just wanted to share the fact that the federal courts are now starting to also get involved with the opioid and other addiction crisis. And so I was very proud of the fact that they called on us as state courts to try to advise and help them. Again, there are videos and other content here if you all want to utilize those. Next slide. Our COVID webpage has had our whole website, the AOC, has had over 6.5 million hits. So we know how much it is being utilized. But I did want to share this with you all because if anyone needs to know what is going on with your particular judicial district, all of the plans are located here on this website. So you can find out what is going on in your particular area with your particular courts. Again, just wanted to share this because we are all in this together. And so I wanted to make sure that you all knew that we had this webpage just dedicated to COVID and what is going on in our courts. Next slide. Again, the network is working with all of these various organizations all across communities, and just very, very proud of the work that we have done both in Tennessee and nationally. Next slide. Again, just some of the associations that are part of what we are doing. Next slide. And I did want to tell you all that that on that last slide, I think it says reach out to us or for more information or whatever. The AARP is actually out training people. So if you all have training needs, and you, as you can see, we have trained 45 state champions judges in almost every single state of the nation, and then they have continued 600 healthcare physicians in the correctional facilities about motivational interviewing, something that I know you all had already had a module on during this Pivot conference. So I think that is it for me. I will turn it over, and here it is. If you have a request, you can submit your request to thisnetwork.org. Oh, I wanted to say we try to use media in every way that we can. I was so excited that Sesame Street actually created a character about a mom who has an addiction. You all can go on and find some of these videos. I think they're really, really helpful, both for parents and then also if you have, younger children in your that you are providing services to. Next slide. All of our partners, we welcome all of you all. We look forward to working with you all. If you are finding any particular problems in your area or your community or in your courts, we would be happy to hear from you all. We want to be at the table, and we are just so glad that Marie and TARCP invited us to be here today. Next slide. Thank you all.
All right, good morning. So my name is Stephanie Etheridge. I am the Juvenile Court Manager and the Judicial Safe Baby Court Coordinator at the Administrative Office of the Courts. And we're going to talk this morning about some of the innovative programs in juvenile court. And next slide, please. And the first one we're going to talk about are the Tennessee Safe Baby Courts. The Safe Baby Court is a holistic, multidisciplinary approach to meet the needs of both infants and toddlers and their families. It focuses on community involvement in establishing and reestablishing individual and familial supports for infants, toddlers, and their families. And as a result, outcomes are better for communities, partners, caregivers, and most importantly, children. So Tennessee's first site actually began in Davidson County in 2016, and the second site began in Grundy County in 2017. And as Director Tate mentioned, thanks to legislation initiated by Senator Hale, Tennessee was able to establish 5 additional sites in 2018, which are Coffee, Johnson, Knox, Madison, and Stewart counties, and then 5 additional sites in 2019. And those are Anderson, Dixon, Henry, Jefferson, and Rutherford counties, bringing our total to 12 sites currently. Tennessee is also the first state to have a statewide emphasis on prevention cases in safe baby court. And so, again, as you can see on this map, sites have been established across the state and are comprised of urban, suburban, and very rural counties. Next slide, please. So the Tennessee Safe Baby Court vision statement is to achieve lasting safety, permanency, and well-being for Tennessee's infants, toddlers, and families through a collaborative team approach. And that will be a recurring theme that you hear me talk about today. Next slide, please. So the goals of Safe Baby Court are to improve child safety and well-being, to prevent children from entering foster care, to heal trauma and repair the parent-child relationship, to stop the intergenerational cycle of repeat maltreatment, and promote timely permanency. And in order to do this, we surround at-risk families with support services they need. And ultimately, we want to strengthen families by providing and equipping them with the resources and the tools that they need to be healthy and successful. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the what of Safe Baby Court. So Safe Baby Court addresses the root cause of justice system involvement with infants, toddlers, and families through specialized dockets, multidisciplinary teams, and a non-adversarial approach. It offers evidence-based, trauma-informed treatment, judicial supervision, and accountability. And a unique tenet of Safe Baby Court is a focus on community involvement in establishing familial supports for infants and toddlers. Safe Baby Court also differs from traditional dependency neglect cases. There is frequent and intentional quality parent-child visitation. There's a strong focus on infant mental health. The family voice is absolutely paramount. And there are frequent child and family team meetings, as well as frequent review court hearings. Next slide, please. So in Tennessee, we are fortunate to have very strong partners, not only at the state and local level, but also at the national level. Tennessee has adopted 0 to 3's core components of their Safe Baby Court team approach. And those core components are listed on this visual right here that you will see. And as you will see, the number one key component is judicial and child welfare leadership. And that is really at the heart of this work. In order for it to be successful and in order for all of the other moving parts to work collaboratively together, you've got to have that strong leadership at the top. And we are very, very fortunate in Tennessee to have that. Next slide, please. And so this next visual just literally describes the Safe Baby Court eligibility and process. The Department of Children's Services must have an open case, and the DCS case remains open and active until that Safe Baby Court case is closed out. The juvenile court must have jurisdiction through a dependency and neglect petition that is filed with the court. At least one subject child of the petition must be between the ages of 0 through 3 years old. Participation by the family must be voluntary, and that target children may be in custody or at risk of coming into custody. And again, that just means that there are custodial as well as non-custodial, those prevention cases in Safe Baby Court. Next slide, please. So in Tennessee, while our caseloads are based upon the need and the resources of each jurisdiction, it is recommended that the Safe Baby Court coordinators have no more than 20 active cases. And so there is a dedicated coordinator that works to provide intensive services, that intensive care coordination piece, and really keeps all those moving parts moving together in just a very functional way. And that role of the coordinator is absolutely critical to the success of Safe Baby Court. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the multidisciplinary team. So from this work, we recognize the critical need for a multidisciplinary approach, both again at the local and the state levels, and we began actively working to remove barriers and breaking down silos. We created a statewide team here in Tennessee that includes representatives from the Administrative Office of the Courts, the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, and the Department of Children's Services. So again, in order to successfully implement Safe Baby Courts, you must have these strong partners with a shared vision and commitment to this work. Also in Tennessee, we have been very fortunate to have multiple ongoing statewide initiatives and programs focused on the individual and familial needs of families. And because of this, we have been able to establish and enhance services in our Safe Baby Court jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So Safe Baby Court keeps the family at the center of this work and creates strong community partnerships, again, at the local level in order to maximize service delivery and to ensure the individual and familial needs are met. Each Safe Baby Court jurisdiction establishes a multidisciplinary court team, which includes active community team members to support the Safe Baby Court and to reinforce and reestablish healthy families and their place in the community. These stakeholders and active community team members should be invested in systemic change for the Safe Baby Court target population, because as we know, it really does take a village. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, each Safe Baby Court jurisdiction, they have active court teams. And so your child and family teams are different from the larger court team because it constitutes a core group that is working with an individual family. And so the list that you see there on the screen are examples of child and family team members. Obviously, they're going to include the family first and foremost. They're going to include that Safe Baby Court coordinator, They're going to include your child welfare agency staff. They're going to include your key providers, infant mental health experts, substance use providers, CASA, just whomever is involved with that family. It's important for them to certainly have an active role. Next slide, please. So here's another key component of Safe Baby Court that I had mentioned earlier, is that frequent quality visitation time. So our Safe Baby Court judges and the entire Safe Baby Court team are responsible for ensuring that frequent, individualized, and meaningful contact occur between parents and children in Safe Baby Court. What we know is that more visitation does equal an increased likelihood of achieving permanency within the first year. And in addition to visitation being an opportunity for meaningful contact, parents also receive coaching, mentoring, and support to strengthen their parent-child bond, which again is just another unique aspect of the Safe Baby Court. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about permanency and concurrent planning. Permanency is a legally permanent, nurturing family for every child that is involved in the case. Reunification is the primary focus of permanency, but there are times where reunification is just not in the child's best interest. And when reunification is not in that child's best interest, permanency may also be achieved through exiting or granting custody to a relative, or adoption, or permanent guardianship. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, go back one more. Thanks. So every member of the Safe Baby Court team is also responsible for ensuring that timely permanency for the children occurs. Every case in Safe Baby Court, whether it is a custodial case, meaning that the children are in foster care, or that non-custodial case, meaning that prevention case, there is a permanency plan that is created within that child and family team. The permanency plan is the roadmap that outlines everything that the family needs to do in order to achieve permanency. That plan is a living document. It should be updated frequently when the circumstances of that child and family change. Every Safe Baby Court case has a monthly child and family team meeting. They have a monthly review hearing in court as well. Permanency plans must be created within 30 days of a child being removed or a case being transferred to Safe Baby Court. Okay, you can go ahead. Well, no, hold on a second. So concurrent planning, let me hit that first, and we'll go on to the next slide, is the identification and active pursuit of more than one permanency goal at the same time. We want to ensure that this happens from the very beginning of a case so that everybody on the team knows the direction and all of the steps that the family needs to take in order to achieve permanency. And again, concurrent planning is absolutely critical when we are talking about our youngest population. So it begins on day one of a Safe Baby Court case and continues until permanency is achieved. This can also expedite the achievement of permanency. If the goal of reunification just cannot be achieved during the first 12 months of the case, and there is no compelling reason to allow additional time, then the Safe Baby Court team will pursue finalizing permanency through that concurrent goal. So an example of a concurrent goal is obviously starting with reunification as your first and foremost, and then also you may have an identified relative who is willing to take custody of the children if the parents are not able to successfully reunify. So that is an example of having concurrent goals on the plan. Okay, go ahead to the next slide, please. So discharge planning. So we have a discharge and final child and family team meeting where the Safe Baby Court team will assist the family with developing a contingency plan and ensuring that continued access to all necessary resources. The contingency plan will address potential future issues such as child care planning, resource utilization, relapse planning and prevention. Next slide, please. And so the work that we have been doing in Tennessee is absolutely incredible. Since we've started Safe Baby Court back in 2016, more than half of our cases have been prevention cases. And as I mentioned earlier, we are leading the way on a national level in focusing on prevention work in our Safe Baby Courts. We are extremely fortunate in Tennessee to have these strong partnerships, to be able to work together at the state and local level. And because of that strong partnership with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse and the Department of Children's Services and our courts, we have seen absolutely incredible outcomes as a result of this work. And so now we're going to show just a very short video that highlights the importance of this approach and the absolute life-changing opportunities that safe baby courts and even family treatment courts provide to families here in Tennessee.
A father. This is a son, a grandson, but most of all, most important, a father. This is a great day for me.
Today we had graduation for both Safe Baby Court and Family Treatment Court. We had 2 Family Treatment Court graduates and 3 Safe Baby Court graduates, and they were all 5 single fathers. To see them, the things that they have shared in their group together, they are bonded by that, and that's why you see the hugs, to see what they have all gone through together.
It's drug testing, presenting. Even though you work 10 hours that day, you might have a meeting or class that you gotta attend.
And so that's what's so great about the Family Treatment Court and the Safe Baby Court model, is it is a much more specific plan to that person.
There were no promises being made. The only promise that was made to me, if I do the right thing, they can guarantee me to have full custody of my children, and it'll be a life-changing situation for me.
I had some really good friends, and Lewis was one of the first ones that met me, because we all read together at first, and we all ended up in here, and now we're all graduating and getting our kids back, so thank y'all.
We always wanted to be dad. We just, I guess, in a sense, had to be shown what to do to move towards being dad, and like we got a lot in common, and we just lean on each other.
That's one of the things I think is so exciting about having these 5 individuals all together, is that they're learning from each other. They never had maybe that role model. So it's very exciting to have the group of them all together.
They're family to me. We've done plenty of things together. We've barbecued together, we've had dinner.
Just having people that experience the same lifestyle you've experienced helps so much. Lewis is a son, a grandson.
So Tennessee is deeply committed to addressing and meeting the individual and familial needs of our infants, toddlers, children, youth, young adults, parents, and caregivers. We certainly hope to continue expanding the work of our Safe Baby Courts across our great state, and certainly look forward to the opportunity to work with each of you. And we are certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have, both now and in the future. And on this last slide that's on the screen right now, you'll see my contact information, as well as Elizabeth Steady-Reeve, who is also serves on our statewide Safe Baby Court leadership team with me. She is with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, and has been an absolutely incredible partner from day one in this work. And also Sammy Mayfair, who is with the Department of Children's Services. Both are just a tremendous colleague, and just great in supporting the work of our Safe Baby Courts. And then also we have a Safe Baby Court website that is also on this slide right here. And again, I believe that you will be able to have access to these slides at the end of this presentation, so that information will be readily available to you. Okay, so now we're going to transition into one of our other innovative juvenile court programs that is actually just in the very beginning stages, that we are incredibly excited about here in Tennessee. This is our Tennessee Family Preservation Initiative. And in December of 2020, our state executed a memorandum of understanding with the National Center for State Courts to implement a family preservation pilot in Rutherford County. And we are currently in the early stages of planning and implementation. Rutherford County was chosen for the pilot in part due to the incredible prevention work that is occurring in Safe Baby Court in this jurisdiction. What is so unique in Rutherford County with their Safe Baby Court is that they are only working with prevention cases. The rest of our safe baby court jurisdictions have a combination of custodial cases and prevention cases, but Rutherford County is all prevention cases. So it certainly was just an incredible fit for this new pilot. And also due to the strong leadership and commitment to these efforts by the juvenile court judge, Donna Scott Davenport. And additionally, Rutherford County has a high rate of opioid overdose deaths, and therefore we see the need to address parental substance use and the impact it has on children and youth. And a lot of work is already underway in our state that focuses on recovery, relapse, and prevention. And because of these efforts, we see the value in continuing to expand this work by implementing this new initiative. A primary focus of this initiative is to work with children, youth, and parents prior to petitions being filed, utilizing a trauma-informed multidisciplinary approach and response. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we are in the early stages of planning and implementation. We have a dedicated family preservation leadership team that is comprised of the Administrative Office of the Courts, the National Center for State Courts, Prevention Coalition for Success, which is a nonprofit organization in Rutherford County, and the Rutherford County Juvenile Court. And so with all of these efforts underway, you might ask yourself, well, why do we need another problem-solving approach in juvenile court? And our next slide is going to help us better understand that. So with our Family Preservation Initiative, we want to prevent or minimize child welfare and judicial system involvement. It is absolutely a holistic approach to serving families, addresses individual and familial needs. We engage parents and youth in the decision-making process. We engage community partners to meet the needs of the families. It is a wraparound service delivery, multidisciplinary teams, and co-parenting and mentoring. And I want to go back to that first bullet point, to prevent or minimize child welfare and judicial system involvement. This is an absolute key component of this initiative. All right, next slide, please. And so with the Family Preservation Initiative approach, again, similar to Safe Baby Court, we want to improve child safety and well-being. We want to heal the trauma and repair that parent-child relationship, to empower communities. We also want to stop the intergenerational cycle of maltreatment, and we want to create healthy and thriving families. And so with this initiative, we will focus on referrals that are a true pre-petition, where we have the opportunity to prevent that system involvement that I mentioned earlier. And then also where there are initial filings. On those initial filings, one of the things that we have discussed is working with families where, for example, the Department of Children's Services may file a petition for court-ordered services for a family. And in that event, then a referral can also be made to the Family Preservation Coordinator. That Family Preservation Coordinator can then begin to work with the family, work with that multidisciplinary team, with the Department of Children's Services, all key members, in order to provide intensive wraparound services to families to prevent that further system involvement, with the idea being that if the family is successful in working with their plan and working with their services, there's the potential for the Department of Children's Services, for example, to possibly non-suit their petition at the end of the case, which is an incredible opportunity for families. On a pre-petition side, one example of those particular cases could be a referral from the Youth Service Office. The Youth Service officers work with a number of cases that involve truancy. They involve status offenses, low-level, substance use offenses. And so one example of that could be the Youth Service Officer making a referral to that Family Preservation Coordinator, who again can then work with the family to prevent a petition from ever being filed. And therefore, we're preventing that justice system involvement for youth. And so another key component of this approach is ensuring that we connect our youth to strong, healthy mentors, provide them with life skills training and all the services that they need so that they can make good, positive decisions and healthy decisions for themselves. Next slide, please. So where are we now? So you can see from this slide that we have a lot of planning that is in progress. This includes our leadership team meetings, assessing the needs of the community, determining eligibility, defining that referral process, establishing policies and procedures, exploring options for legal representation for families during the pre-petition phase. And we're also meeting with other states to determine what has worked well for them, lessons learned, and also best practice. And finally, we are identifying stakeholders at both the local and the state level. Next slide, please. So our next steps are to finalize the referral process, to determine our data collection, to finalize our policies and procedures, to hold additional stakeholder meetings, and also additional trainings. Next slide, please. And we are excited to fully implement this pilot and to change the way that not only the judiciary, but the community responds to at-risk children, youth, and their families. Next slide, please. And again, here's contact information on this slide. You'll see my contact information on there, as well as Sheila Barrera, who is the Family Preservation Coordinator, who is absolutely phenomenal to work with. I had the privilege of working with her in Safe Baby Court when she was a coordinator in another jurisdiction, and she did incredible work. So extremely excited to have an opportunity to work with her again on another problem-solving approach, and also Magistrate Stacey Lynch, who is presiding over the Family Preservation Initiative in Rutherford County. And with that, Anne Louise, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. So we're going to switch gears now and talk about the Supreme Court's Access to Justice Initiative and other programs under that to help gain some understanding of some civil legal resources and the value they can have for recovery court professionals. And as I said in the opening, hopefully add some resources to your toolkits that you may not already be aware of. We're going to start off with just some brief information about why the court declared access to justice its #1 strategic priority back in 2008. I can't believe it's already been that long since they did that, and they created a commission to study these issues and to make recommendations and start programs and things of that nature. You can see the commission's mission statement there. If you're interested in learning more about the commission, it's a smaller group of people. There are 10 professionals that make up that group. The link is there. And again, you're going to have these PowerPoints as soon as this presentation is over. So I do encourage you to check out the website and learn more about just the commission and the work it's done over the past, I guess, 13 years since it's been around. A lot of times people sort of ask why is the court doing this? Why is the commission doing all this work? And if you can see on the screen that based on our most recent legal needs study that is now, it was 2014. So the data I expect is worse, sadly, but there were 1.2 million Tennesseans that with civil legal problems that would qualify from help for legal aid. So that meant that their income was under the threshold that legal aid has to have. It also meant that, whatever their civil legal issue was one that legal aid could take. There's some that they just can't take because they get federal funding or different funding streams and things of that nature. But then right now we have, based on the most recent census data, we have 1.4 million Tennesseans that live at or below the federal poverty guidelines. And so I put what those numbers are there because those are very small numbers. For a family of 4, we're talking about $26,200 as your annual income. So we're talking about people who really do not have any means and do not have any resources to try to get help when they encounter civil legal problems. That does not even figure into the people who may be making just a little bit above that amount of money because they happen to be making, let's say $30,000 a year for a family of 4, they would be disqualified from traditional legal aid help. So there's a huge section of the population that cannot get help from civil legal aid because of their income. And we only have about 85 civil legal aid attorneys in Tennessee. So, if you do some quick math, which I'm not great at, 85 attorneys cannot handle that many cases. At least it's not humanly possible. We have about 17,000 attorneys that are licensed in Tennessee that also practice here. And over 50 of them are reporting doing pro bono work, which is free legal help for people. So, that's wonderful. That's a great stat. That's something that we're very, very proud of. Those attorneys that do report, they average over 70 hours of pro bono each year. So they're doing some good work. They're doing a lot of good work. But again, that's not going to really touch on that 1.2 million Tennesseans that would qualify for help from civil legal aid, which is where a lot of attorneys do in fact do their pro bono work. There are other opportunities, but many do gravitate towards sort of the traditional civil legal aid agencies because of just their reputation and the credibility that they have. So the Supreme Court directed the commission to develop a strategic plan. We have to do that every 2 years. It helps us stay relevant and current. It helps us address issues such as the opioid pandemic, such as the COVID pandemic, such as things that you can't really plan for, but we can, because we must undergo this strategic planning, we're able to help identify and recommend projects and programs to enhance access to justice. If you're an attorney out there, a judge, what have you, and you like learning more about the Supreme Court, this is all found in Tennessee Supreme Court Rule 50, same website that was on the prior slide. You can look and just see the myriad of responsibilities that the commission has and the myriad of civil legal issues that they can attack. We've always, when I say we, I mean my team at the AOC itself, but then also the Access to Justice Commission. We've always had a very expansive view of the civil access to justice ecosystem. It's never been, this is only going to be able to be done by lawyers or judicial professionals or legal professionals. We have to all be working together, and I know those themes have carried forward today with Director Tate's presentation and Stephanie Etheridge's as well. So we include, human service providers. You can see a list there, medical and insurance providers, religious groups. We have a faith-based initiative called the Tennessee Faith and Justice Alliance that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Libraries and schools, where can we get information to families, really, and it's their parents or their caregivers of these kids. It's community college, people that are returning back to school. College students, we found, do have some civil legal problems, but they also have some very innovative ideas and ways to address them. Again, our expansive view, you can see courts. Obviously, courts are going to be in there, and our direct service providers, that is our legal aid. That also is our law school clinics, community-based clinics, funders, and then the private bar in our world means private attorneys. But as you can see that list under there, there's a lot of different ways that attorneys in the private bar are included in our civil justice ecosystem. So I wanted to touch briefly on some new, I don't want to say new, but I guess work that the commission has re-emphasized in 2020. The Tennessee Supreme Court released a statement on June 25th about racial injustice equity. And there's a quote on the screen. I'm going to read it because I find it personally powerful. But it says, "Racism still exists and has no place in our society. Upon entering service in the judiciary, we swore to uphold the constitutions of the state of Tennessee and the United States. Thus, it is our moral obligation and our sworn duty to ensure that the people of Tennessee receive equal protection of its laws. Justice must be for all." In that same statement, it directed the Access to Justice Commission to establish a new initiative and identify and eliminate barriers to racial and ethnic fairness and justice. And the commission had been doing this work, but as one of our team members or commission members has said, we hadn't necessarily been calling a thing about why we might be doing resources in certain communities and whatnot. And now we are being intentional with that work. So what have we done already? We have a pro bono and faith days is something we do every October. Is where we really sort of step outside of our legal world and try to connect with our faith leaders and our community leaders and find out, what are some of the things that are going on in their communities? What can we do to bring people together? What can we do to, to help permanently solve some of these issues that you all are seeing. They were virtual in 2020, obviously, but we set up virtual town halls to bring together community members to discuss racial injustice. But it wasn't just, they were all great discussions. We had one targeted towards each division of the state, so East, Middle, and West. But it wasn't just very respectful community leaders talking about these issues, but it was like, what are some things we're going to do about this? And they were all moderated by someone you may all know, but Monty Burks. He's on our commission, but he's also with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. And they were great discussions. We have recordings of those if anyone is interested. And we're going to build upon those and have another town hall at the end of April. A little bit of a different focus, but still in the same vein. We had an eviction summit. Director Tate mentioned that in her remarks, where he partnered with, as you can see on the screen, the Tennessee Housing Development Agency and the Tennessee Department of Human Services. And we came together in October of 2020 to really try to get a handle on the impending evictions matters that we knew were going to just enter the court system, but also impact thousands of Tennesseans' lives, if not millions. Because what we were hearing from our legal aid partners and our other access to justice partners is traditionally tenants have been the group that those people help. But we were hearing, because people were losing jobs and were not able to pay rent, that landlords, and we're talking about smaller landlords, people who might have 2 or 3 units that they're renting out, and that's basically paying their mortgage, or that's their retirement income, that they were really hurting. So we're talking about other individuals that may be on the opposite side of that situation, equally in need. And so we brought together all these stakeholders to understand where we were. We still had, the CARES Act moratorium had expired. We had the CDC moratorium, and just people were sort of dumbfounded about where to go. I don't even know what to do. And so we talked about that. We talked about some of the wraparound services that the groups, our partners, could provide. We also explored how evictions disparately impact communities of color and other communities in Tennessee. And we're still building upon the networks and the sort of creativity that came from that meeting. The commission sponsored a virtual training in December on implicit bias, and we're going to have 4 more this calendar year. They're completely free. They're all virtual. If you are a lawyer or are needing some type of continuing education, we are trying to provide that. But we had over 600 attendees, and that's the largest training that the AOC has ever put on any given day. We have many multi-day, trainings when we were in an in-person state, but this was an hour and a half. So obviously it was very well attended. We got some really wonderful feedback, and we're going to continue that series again, all talking about exploring implicit bias more, but also really looking at racial injustice, poverty, and related topics. And so I will tell you at the end how you can find out about the best way for us to find out about what we are doing and how to stay connected. These are some other initial action steps that we took in that work. I'm going to go through it just so you can see this is our sort of one pager with our strategic plan. You can see a little bit about what we want to do in 2020 and 2021. Sort of an ongoing theme is always to expand our network and expand partners. We know that there's such great work being done across the state, but we don't always know of each other. And so just trying to be a hub of connectivity and partnerships is a ongoing theme for the commission. The Tennessee Faith and Justice Alliance, it's a project of the commission, and it's very basically an alliance of faith-based groups in Tennessee who commit to providing legal resources to their congregations and communities. And you can see the website where you can find information about that. But it's really, where do people go in times of need and times of crisis? And a lot of times people do turn to their faith leaders. As you see right here, where do people go for help? A lot of people, some people ignore it, some will Google it. But then we have, a stat says that over 60% do turn to their faith communities first. And so we want to equip faith leaders and community leaders with resources to help them refer those people to appropriate legal resources, or just have a basic understanding of existing legal resources along the lines of what Stephanie was talking about. We want to have some preventative legal care, keep people's situations from getting the worst that they could be, keep them possibly from being in the court system even. And then we recognize that asking for help is difficult. So the more we can equip faith leaders on these issues, the more likely, somebody will go there for help and have a positive experience, and then maybe tell someone else who would then go to the faith leader. We've talked a lot about training faith leaders. That's one aspect of it. We have a referral model. So if a faith leader has someone and they're not really sure where to go, we have a group of volunteer lawyers who's we can't always guarantee we'll be able to place that case with a lawyer to give them a consultation and help them, but we try very hard, and we have a pretty high success rate. We can help groups establish legal clinics, virtual now, but hopefully back to in person very soon. And then just community education. If there's evictions obviously is the issue of the day. If there's some education trainings or materials or something of that nature that we can either come and train on or equip community leaders to train on, we will do that. We've talked a little bit today about, I know the stat was when people tend to re-abuse is when they are re-entering system. And so the Access to Justice Commission, even though it was established for people with civil legal needs, we have in the past, I guess 5 years, sort of explored or moved over into the criminal justice. We started with expungements, and we were getting a lot of feedback from our legal clinics that we needed some training and resources on that. The Tennessee legislature was pushing forward a variety of different bills at that issue, and we needed to be involved in order to just ensure that those bills did what the intent was, and were workable pieces of legislation. We've also looked at expanding, to driver's license reinstatement, looking at restoration of voting rights, and just sort of reentry work in general, those wraparound services. I'm going to go through really quickly on these, but a lot of times people don't, when they think of it, they have a divide where it's civil and criminal, and that's really not the case, and it shouldn't be the case, because civil legal aid and civil legal aid of lawyers and pro bono lawyers and resources that are on the civil side, they can have a huge impact on people that are in the criminal justice system. We talked about expungement here, but they can get, secure a certificate of rehabilitation if there's inaccurate records, which we found a lot in the expungement world, that there might be charges still there that were actually shouldn't be there, that didn't, just different things. Not just in that world, but, fees and fines that come there, a revoked or suspended license, an occupational license, child support. A lot of people have horrible back child support when they're in the system, and civil legal aid lawyers can help untangle that. Housing authority evictions, again, there's a lot of things that on the civil side that we can do to again provide those wraparound services to somebody who is finding themselves in a period of reentry and needing those services. These are some statewide services that are available that I wanted to make sure everyone knew about. This is help4tn.org. There's a screenshot of the site, and then also the website itself. I encourage you to look on that site because I think that it is helpful for everyone. There's a lot of different, there's some just a myriad of different resources. It also is a good way to just get plugged in and see what's going on in your community. There's a corresponding legal advice helpline. It's also called Help4TN. The phone number is on the screen, and it's free for everybody. And it's not income-based, which is really helpful when we're talking about that segment of the population that makes more than they could to access legal aid, but or even just somebody who would be able to pay for an attorney but doesn't know. They've never been in the court system before. The last statewide resources I'm going to touch on, it's called Tennessee Free Legal Answers. And this is where you can email your questions, legal questions, and a volunteer lawyer will reply with advice via email. If you don't have email, which in this day and age, I don't think that's very common, but there are instructions on how to set that up. You can have some back and forth between the client and the attorney. So if the attorney needs more information, that they can do that. This is income screen, but it's double the amount that somebody would make for traditional legal aid. So we do capture that segment of the population who would otherwise fall through the cracks. I want to let you know about another resource that we have, community mediation centers in Tennessee. You can read about them there, and you can see a list of them there, but they can help people. They tend to help people when one or both parties may be involved in a dispute and they don't have any access to lawyers. So they're a wonderful resource. I encourage you to see if there's one near you, because they also engage in some of this preventative education and keeping people who may not need to, be in the court system out of the court system. We have a few grants at these mediation centers. One offender reconciliation program, a grant. You can read more about it there. You can read more about it on the AOC website and the links provided. This is another grant that we administer. It's not only to community mediations, but they get some of this funding. But this is, for parents, and it can be any, going through divorce, post-divorce, or even parents who were never married can access these programs. And so I encourage you to find out more about that. These are recurring grants. And then the last one that we have is an access and visitation grant. This is a federal grant that we is given to DHS and then given to us, and we pass it through to different groups. But this is really looking at parents who were never married and making sure the non-custodial parent who doesn't have custody still can access their child. A lot of these people are self-represented litigants that would be accessing this. We have on our site a map of the current ones, so you can see that they're spread out across the state and they're doing different things. And then that is it for me. I included just my contact information. I know you had at the beginning, but if you're interested or want to get involved, I actually encourage you to go online to social media for Access to Justice. There's our handle, it's at Justice for All TN, but we are active on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. But that's where we're able to push out a lot of our events, whether it's virtual or hopefully soon back to in-person. We have resource videos we've made that anybody can use. That's, I encourage you to check that out. And I know we're right at close to time, so I'm going to stop sharing screen and then turn it back over to Marie.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm just like, I'm going to have to schedule an appointment for myself to like grab this material and look through it. And I mean, there's like websites I've never been to and all kinds of great information. It's amazing. So thank you so much. We do have like 4 minutes if somebody has a question or a comment. You have a couple minutes if you have some questions to ask.
Sure.
I put a comment in the chat that I knew it was kind of probably remarkable to some people that most everything we're talking about is preventing people from being in court when we are the courts. But, I think your membership probably more than anyone understands, how important all these services are so that people can return to a healthy, normal life in recovery. And, how important impacting and helping the whole family is and the trauma that the children have gone through. So I just wanted to reiterate that we are all about prevention too, and just look forward to working with you all more. I mentioned to Marie that the expungement clinics go on all over the state, and that I have CEOs tell me that 50% of the people that they try to hire, they can't hire because they have something on their records. So we are desperately trying to host more and more of those. The clerks around the state, the judges around the state who go out into the community, and certainly the pro bono attorneys. This wouldn't occur without all of them working hard to make that happen for our citizens. So, that gets somebody a job, stability. They can then pay for their home, and and help to raise a healthy, happy family. So we are looking forward to figuring out more ways that we can get information to you all.
We're definitely on board with that. I love to thank our panelists. Thank you so much, Director Tate, Stephanie, and Louise. It was great having you a part of the conference this year, and this was definitely a lot of great information. We will share this information with you, so don't worry, it will be out there. Our last session starts at 11:15 with Matt, so if you're going to stick around, I will see you in there in 17 minutes. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank
Thanks,
you so
everyone.
much.